Today, I'd like to talk about two individuals that, in my judgment, are the gold standard for those that would aspire to work in the national security field. And they are two of the most distinguished public servants our nation has ever seen in this area. One is Lieutenant General Brent Scowcroft, who served as the National Security Advisor for two presidents, the only one to do that in our history. Brent passed away several months ago at the age of 95. The other individual I want to talk about is the Honorable George Shultz, who served as 4 cabinet secretaries in our country, the only second person to ever serve in that capacity. And George Shultz passed away a week or so ago at the age of 100. Both of these individuals, again, as I indicated, are considered the gold standard when it comes to how one should operate and work in the national security field. They were both bipartisan or nonpartisan. They adhered to the old adage that when it comes to national security, politics should stop at the water's edge. And this was their mantra that they adhered to in all of their distinguished careers, and two individuals that had a profound impact on the end of the Cold War and on America's strength during the Cold War and in the aftermath. And frankly, as we have a new administration starting up, as they populate the State Department, the National Security Council, and the Department of Defense, and our intelligence apparatus, these are two individuals who could serve as role models, and they could learn a lot from their lessons. Let's start with Brent Scowcroft, who started as a career as a United States Air Force officer after graduating from the Army Military Academy at West Point. And he went on to be one of the most astute and influential leaders in this area. When President Ford asked him to be the National Security Advisor, he retired his Air Force commission as a lieutenant general. And then he served for, George W. Bush as his National Security Advisor. He worked in the Nixon administration, and he also is an individual that was very much opposed to the Iraq War. And at the time, it was very controversial for someone that influential to come out against the Iraq War that President Bush's son, Herbert Walker Bush, was pushing because Brent had served as his father's national security advisor. And in hindsight, people would say now, Brent was right on course on that. He set up what we call the modern National Security Council. His is the role model that Jake Sullivan, I believe, is following. A very collegial and objective organization. He wanted everybody to have a voice and make sure the president got the most timely, objective information. And George Shultz, who basically was Ronald Reagan's Secretary of State for most of Ronald Reagan's tenure, and he was an individual that saw in Mikhail Gorbachev, then the leader of the Soviet Union, and we were at the peak of the Cold War still. The Berlin Wall was still up. The Soviets still had massive nuclear forces and massive conventional forces. He saw the possibility that others did not see, and he got Ronald Reagan to work with Gorbachev. And between the two of them, I think people would say they played a large role in ending the Cold War, the Berlin Wall coming down, and the peace dividends that followed during that period. Gorbachev himself was quoted as saying, "Without Ronald Reagan, the Cold War would not have ended." And he also said, but without Shultz, Reagan would not have ended the Cold War. George Shultz started his career. He graduated from Princeton University, and he served as a United States Marine in World War II as an artillery officer. He never lost his love of the Marine Corps. By, of course, being a Marine myself, we always look carefully at that. And later in life, I remember as a individual that was able to participate, the Marine Corps had Fleet Week in San Francisco where George lived, and they made him at age 95 the honorary officer of the day. When Condi Rice, one of his proteges, called him to tell him she'd been picked to be Secretary of State, George Shultz says, "Well, that's the best job in government." He said, "With one exception, the best job I ever had was being a captain in the United States Marine Corps." So we have in Brent Scowcroft and George Shultz two amazing individuals whose life was always about serving others, doing the right thing for our country, and who are the gold standard for the new administration's people that aspire to lead in the national security field could learn a lot from these two individuals. And I was privileged to attend Brent Scowcroft's military funeral honors at Arlington Cemetery a couple of weeks ago, and our nation paid their respects in a proper way, and the same will happen with George Shultz here in the near future. Thank you.